Today's episode of Variant is brought to you by Domain.com. Today on Variant, I give you the history of Carnage. Welcome to Variant, where we love comics more than I miss the DC Comics slogan, we're drawing the line at $2.99. I'm your host, Arris Quinones. Ever since I did a History of Venom episode last year, people have been asking me to do a History of Carnage episode. Don't believe me? Here's a few examples. See? So since a lot of you want to know about Carnage, guess what? I'm going to tell you all about him. Cletus Kasady, who's the man that eventually becomes Carnage, first appeared in The Amazing Spider-Man 344 in March of 1991 and made his first appearance as Carnage in The Amazing Spider-Man 361 in April of 1992. He was created by writer David Michelinie and artists Erik Larsen and Mark Bagley. Writer David Michelinie created Carnage to be a darker version of Venom, intending to have Venom's human alter ego Eddie Brock be killed off in The Amazing Spider-Man issue 400 and have the symbiote continue to bond with a series of hosts. However, as Brock and Venom's popularity increased, Marvel would not allow him to be killed. Michelinie then decided to create a new character who was a total psychopath and, unlike Venom, had no sense of morality. The character was originally meant to be named Chaos and then Ravage before they settled on Carnage. Carnage's human component, Cletus Kasady, was designed by artist Erik Larsen, who modeled the character after DC Comics supervillain the Joker, which is actually pretty obvious once you compare the two. As for Mark Bagley's role, he designed the Carnage symbiote. But now that you know how and why the character was created, let's talk about his fictional history. Cletus Kasady is a psychopath and a sadist. Yeah, they definitely took inspiration from the Joker. Kasady is a deeply disturbed individual with a dark past. As a child, he killed his grandmother by pushing her down a flight of stairs, tried to murder his mother by throwing a television into her bathtub, and tortured and killed his mother's dog. So I think that's all I have to say to put a stamp on him being a psychopath. After the latter, Cletus's mother tried to kill him. He soon became an orphan and was sent to a home for boys, where his antisocial behavior made him a target of abuse from the other orphans and the staff. But see, you don't want to make fun of a psychopath, because when you do, they get revenge like Kasady did by murdering a teacher or pushing a girl in front of a moving bus because she laughed at him for asking her out on a date, followed by him burning down the orphanage. So you really don't want to make fun of a homicidal maniac. Anyway, during his brutal years at the Home for Boys, Kasady acquired his philosophy that life was essentially meaningless and futile, that laws were only words, and came to see the spreading of chaos through random, unpatterned bloodshed as the ultimate freedom. Flash forward a bit, Kasady became a serial killer. Wow. Didn't see that coming. He was then captured and sent to Rikers Island prison for 11 murders, though he bragged of a dozen more, and he shared a cell with Eddie Brock, who had lost the alien symbiote that transformed him into the supervillain Venom. Brock's symbiote soon returned and bonded with him again, and unwittingly left behind a symbiote offspring. For those of you who don't know, the symbiotes reproduce asexually once per generation. The new symbiote then entered Kasady's bloodstream through a cut and bonded with his blood, transforming him into Carnage. He escaped prison and began a series of murders, and then at the scene of each crime, wrote Carnage on the walls with his own blood, which is very disturbing, yet awesome. He was found by Spider-Man, but Spider-Man proved to be no match for Carnage. In desperation, Spider-Man made a truce with Venom to fight Carnage. Carnage was defeated with a sonic weapon. After this, we get perhaps the most famous Carnage storyline in the Spider-Man crossover event, Maximum Carnage. The alien symbiote Kasady was bonded to was destroyed during his capture, so he was presumed powerless and jailed at Ravencroft Asylum. However, the symbiote mutated his blood prior to its destruction, enabling Kasady to generate a copy of the symbiote and break out. During his escape, Kasady, again calling himself Carnage, frees his fellow inmate, Shriek. Over the course of their ensuing killing spree through New York City, they recruit Doppelganger, Demogoblin, and Carrion. Carnage dubs himself their father, but in fact, they all despise Carnage and only stay with the group out of devotion to Shriek. As the death toll increases, Spider-Man, Venom, Captain America, Black Cat, and so on all join the cause of stopping them. I'm not going to give away the ending for those of you who haven't read it, but just know it's a great storyline. Now, of course I couldn't talk about Carnage without at least mentioning Spider-Carnage. During the Web of Carnage arc, Ben Reilly is bonded with the Carnage symbiote when it escapes from Ravencroft Institute, where its host, Cletus Kasady, is being held. Reilly struggles for control of himself and tries to prevent the symbiote from taking over. The subsequent inner battle with the creature ends when he has John Jameson take him to a cell designed to hold Carnage. He willingly subjects himself to a potentially fatal dose of microwave radiation to try to kill the symbiote, which then returns to Kasady via the pipes. Then we have the awesome and recent Deadpool vs. Carnage storyline, which gave us another mashup of sorts when Carnage bonds with mother freaking Deadpool. And I want to mention Venompool, simply because without Venom there would be no Carnage. Venompool is a combination of Venom and Deadpool, which is quite obvious. He's from an alternate reality. But now I'm going to talk about Carnage's presumed death. After 2004 appearance in New Avengers, the character was presumed dead and was absent from the comics for nearly 6 years, but a 2010 limited series titled Carnage featured the return of the symbiote, where it temporarily found a new female host before reuniting with Kasady. Now, we all know by now that Carnage is the offspring of Venom, but Venom isn't the only one popping out babies, if you will. Carnage also made a little symbiote bundle of joy called Toxin, who has been said to be the most powerful of all the symbiotes. And the more I think about it, Toxin was never really a little bundle of joy. It was actually kind of scary. I've been rambling about Carnage for a few minutes now, talking about his creation, his fictional origin, and yada yada yada, but I've yet to talk about his powers, so that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm only going to be mentioning a handful because he has way too many powers to mention them all. The Alien Symbiote endows Cletus Kasady with enhanced physical strength greater than that of Spider-Man and Venom combined. It gives him shape-shifting abilities, allows him to project a web-like substance from any part of his body. The symbiote can also form weapons out of itself, like turning his hand into an axe. He can plant thoughts into a person's head using the symbiote tendril, and much like Spider-Man, Carnage has the ability to cling to virtually any surface. And the list goes on and on. Now, I know I didn't mention every little detail about Carnage in this episode, and that's simply because his history is really rich with content, as are most comic book characters, but everything I did mention is the basis of what you need to know about the character. But if you still want to know more about the symbiotes, you can check out my History of Venom episode I did a while ago, which I put the link for in the description below. And lastly, before I leave you guys, it's time for some Carnage reading recommendations. You have the Maximum Carnage storyline, Minimum Carnage, Web of Carnage, Deadpool vs. Carnage, Venom vs. Carnage, and Ultimate Spider-Man Volume 11, Carnage. That is a lot of Carnages in one little sentence thing. Wow. And I almost forgot, I want to mention Spider-Man Batman, which is a crossover series that has Spider-Man and Batman fight Carnage and the Joker. It shows the similarities yet differences of the Joker and Carnage, which is really interesting because, as I said earlier, Cletus Kasady was based off the Joker. When you buy a domain name from domain.com, you get the power to influence and control what people find when they search for you online. No domain extension will help you tell your story like a .com or .net domain name. Domain.com is affordable, reliable, easy to use, and they give you free donuts. They do not give you free donuts, but their domain web hosting gives you the glee of eating a nice sugary, powdery donut. The guys at domain.com gave Variants an awesome offer. Get 15% off domain.com's already affordable domain name and web hosting when you use the coupon code VARIANT at checkout. So when you think domain names, think domain.com. First up, we have The Amazing Spider-Man issue 1.4. Witness another secret chapter from the first days of Spider-Man. What started off as fun and games for the new villain clash turns deadly serious. Next, we have Silver Surfer issue 5. A demon is ready to cast the Earth into eternal chaos, so Silver Surfer, the Hulk, and Doctor Strange must stop him. Now we have Batman Superman issue 13. A new story arc begins with this issue. The worlds of Batman and Superman come to an explosive clash as something terrible happens to the world's finest team. Here we have Secret Origins issue 5. In this issue, we get the new 52 origins of Cyborg, Red Hood, and Mara. And finally, we have DC Collectibles Red Hood action figure. Obviously, this isn't a comic, but if you're a big fan of the Red Hood like I am, you're gonna want to pick this up. Well, that brings another episode of Variant to a close, but remember, you can always like our Variant Facebook page to keep up with the show and all things comic related. You can also follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/Arris_Quinones, but I will see your lovely faces next week when I talk about all things comics.